Anyway, so as a professional journalist, both you and I are sick and tired of looking at the show for the past 4 years. It's like a Trump show, and it's going to be over, soon to be over, but still QAnon, Proud Boys, other extreme right KKK, and other right wings still active to protest. So then now what's going on? How does it affect to our future, to common people's life, and how we laborers and the labor union needs to cope to the new regime, Biden regime? So that's my basic question, and you can talk free now.
Okay, so anyway, my name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm a journalist, a labor journalist, and I produce Work Week, and also I do labor video documentaries on YouTube, and have been working in labor media for many, many years. So what is happening?
And do you have documentaries already released? So then maybe we can attach the URL.
Yeah, many documentaries, documentaries on labor history, and working class history, and workers who built the Golden Gate Bridge, many films. The 9/11 responders, I did a documentary on that as well, and
Right.
Iron Worker. So what is happening, not just in the United States, but in the world, is that the world capitalist economy is in crisis. Not new, but the United States is a declining empire.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 40 years, 30, 40 years, it has been exporting industrial base to Mexico, then Japan, and excuse me, China. So the outsourcing of the United States industry has been taking place over decades and decades. And for more profit, these American companies have gone to, excuse me, have gone to outside the United States to make more profits, and that's been encouraged by capital, big capital.
Mm-hmm.
So the result of that is that over the last 30 or 40 years, the real income of American workers have declined.
Mm-hmm.
And
as
also
unions declined too.
Yeah, the same in Japan and the other
Mm-hmm.
industrial countries. And at the same time, the US capitalists have implemented policies of deregulation of the economy, allowing new companies to come in, attacking health and safety standards and protections, and also privatization of public resources. So one of the reasons for the healthcare crisis in the United States now is that public health has been virtually destroyed or undercut. You have private healthcare in the United States, in which the capitalists only want healthcare to make a profit, like they only want drugs to make a profit. So the United States was not prepared for this pandemic. But this economic decline of the United States, and also the cost of the wars around the world, there are more than 800 bases, US bases around the world. The US military budget is $750 billion, is spent to support the US empire. And this is at a time where the infrastructure of the United States is falling apart. Bridges, hospitals, buildings are in decline, and this infrastructure decline makes even the United States even more of a worse investment, and for capitalists. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, you have the development of technology and automation. And automation technology has forced workers to be gig workers, marginalized them. They're temporary workers. The percentage of temporary workers in the United States is now 40%. And it's joining Japan, South Korea, and other countries, where workers' real income is going down. So that has led to a growing anger in the United States, and the rise of nationalism and the rise of Trump. Trump is a reflection of a right-wing nationalist populist who blames the global capitalists and blames global capitalism for the crisis, but he himself is investing in China and has business in other countries. So he himself is involved in international capital investment.
Mm-hmm.
But he has been using that populist language and xenophobia, racism to pit worker against worker in this country, and to increase attacks on blacks and Latinos and Asians in the United States. And the Democratic Party has contributed to that because they, Obama, when he was elected, carried out the banks policies. The banks in the 2008 collapse in the United States, the economic decline, millions of workers lost their homes. Their homes were taken from them. So, and Obama and the Democrats allowed the banks to take their homes. In fact, Kamala Harris at the time was Attorney General, became Attorney General of California. And Wells Fargo was setting up fake bank accounts, ripping off people, fraudulent bank accounts. She refused to prosecute them. Mnuchin, who is Trump's Treasury Secretary, was actually had a bank that was illegally taking homes in California. This is Trump's Secretary of Treasury. And Kamala Harris refused to prosecute him. Her own office in the California Attorney General's office was saying that she should prosecute him for illegally taking the homes of workers in California, people in California. She refused to prosecute. He later gave her a donation of $100,000 for her election campaign.
Too bad.
So you have a situation of the political bankruptcy of the Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats and Republicans have the same economic policies. There's no fundamental difference. And that's why workers are angry and disgusted by both the Democrats and Republicans. So the rise of Donald Trump, he attacked Hillary Clinton, but he had the same policies. For example, he attacked NAFTA, which was a trade agreement with Mexico, but then he proposed an agreement called the USMCA, US-Mexican-Canadian Trade Agreement. The US-Mexican Trade Agreement, Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, is actually NAFTA on steroids. It allows the privatization of the wealth of Mexico. It allows continued pauperization of the people of Mexico, and allows forces American workers to compete with Mexican workers, where independent unions are not allowed. So that is economically the conditions and a rise of crisis. Now, the labor movement in the United States, the unions, like the unions in Canada, in Japan, Rengo, support the capitalist parties. The unions are pro-capitalist and pro-imperialist organizations. The AFL-CIO, which is the National Trade Union Federation, was formed in 1954 as a corporate trade union federation to support U.S. capitalism, labor management partnerships, and also to support U.S. economic interests around the world. And the United States intervened around the world, intervened in Europe. They intervened in Japan. They set up the Liberal Democratic Party, the CIA. So the AFL-CIO has been involved in the international relations, worked with the CIA, and worked with the group called National Endowment for Democracy. They get more than $32 million a year from the US government for their international center, Solidarity Center. But it does the work of the US government around the world. They supported the military coup in Venezuela. They supported the military coup in Chile, the AFL-CIO. So the unions in the United States, most of them are pro-capitalist, pro-imperialist. There is no working class political party in the United States that represents working people. There's no political alternative. So the framework, the political framework in the United States is between the Democrats and Republicans. Now, the growth of the right wing, there is a fascist right wing movement. And it's not just in the United States, it's in Europe and around the rest of the world, who want to set up a fascist dictatorship, a fascist regime. And they will continue to grow no matter who is elected, whether it's Trump or whether Biden, because the conditions in the United States are leading to the growth of fascist movement. And this,
who and which party or who is behind all of this?
Well, there are some wealthy billionaires who support right wing. Turning Point USA So there are some right-wing parties that support these groups. They're targeting professors. They go to try to fire professors around the country. They try to threaten workers. They were mobilized against the Black Lives Matter movement, fascist. And these fascist groups, Proud Boy and others, they work with the police in other communities. That's why in Kenosha, Wisconsin, one of their supporters killed 2 people, and he was allowed to leave Kenosha by the police. So many of the police forces are in alliance, and the major political supporter of Trump was the police association, National Police Association, supported Trump and supported the policies of Trump with more police, more militarization. But the Democrats as well supported militarization of the police. The equipment that was used on people around the world in militarizing police is now being used on people in the United States.
Right.
So the growing trade war, what Trump has done is to blame China, blame Japan, blame Russia, or not blame Russia, but blame China primarily. And the Asian pivot, which both Trump and Obama supported, was that they should remilitarize Asia. And the major economic competitor and opponent is China, and go to war or try to isolate China. So one of the reasons—
May I interrupt you? Because I'm so suspicious, because Trump is kind of exploiting his own show, pretending that the China is economic enemy, but at the same time, at the Trump Tower on the 56th Street, 5th Avenue, there has still been Chinese National Bank inside the building of Trump Tower as a tenant. So that means Ivanka's fashion company is registered in China as well, and her factory is in China. So to me, it's like an all phony, fake show.
Well, it's hypocritical. In fact, in San Francisco, the Bank of what used to be the Bank of America, 555 California, was bought by Trump, but he bought it with Chinese money. Chinese companies loaned him money. Russians loaned him money. So Trump himself is a product of these governments and banks around the world. So he's financially.
Bank of Israel too, right?
Oh, yeah, so he's been supported by banks, and he's dependent on them for his loans. So, I mean, Trump is a capitalist, and he borrows money from banks. And but in the United States now, there's an internecine warfare. There's a warfare in the capitalist class. When you have a declining empire, the capitalists themselves go to war with each other. And the situation now in the United States is the likelihood is there's going to be another major economic collapse because the United States, to deal with the COVID crisis, they printed a lot of money. Billions of dollars have been printed.
They're printing.
They printed money. And to keep the economy afloat, because if they had not printed money, there would have been a complete financial collapse of the world, not just the United States. So they
how much they printed the dollars recently?
They printed dollars, and the United States is still the reserve currency, the world reserve currency. So, but this situation now, where the fight between the Democrats and Republicans means it's unlikely that there's going to be another printing of money, more money, which means that large numbers of small business people will go bankrupt. There are large lines of people for food. Hunger is a major problem in the United States. And the struggle of the working class, public workers, what the Republicans are saying is that before they provide any more money, that they want to attack the pensions of public workers. They want to destroy all the pensions of public workers. Same
thing happened in Japan as well. We're losing our pensions, and the government invested those pension money fund, and it disappeared.
Well, the corruption in the capitalist class, like with the Olympics, all the money that's been invested in the Olympics, while people are facing cutbacks in housing and healthcare and social services, but they're spending billions on the Olympics in Japan. It's all for the profit of the capitalists, not for social services, not for healthcare. And the same as in the United States. So this is going to lead to a very explosive situation in the working class against U.S. capitalism. And young people now supported Bernie Sanders. He got 13 million votes. A lot of young people see socialism as the solution. Within capitalism, this pandemic has actually escalated the wealth of the capitalists. The wealth of the capitalists, the Amazon is growing, and the working class has been further pauperized. Millions of workers
is rising.
Yeah, so it's a big bubble, and the capitalists are becoming wealthier, and the working class is becoming is attacked under a massive attack, and the unions are under attack, and this is going to lead to a major class confrontation, working class confrontation, in which the unions have to fight. Now, one of the political things is Trump says he doesn't want to leave office. He doesn't want to go. The unions should be organizing for a general strike to shut down the entire country, to force him out. Trump is challenging a democratic structure of the United States. It's a capitalist democratic structure, but still he's saying, I'm going to ignore the results of the election. And now tonight, he just said that the Venezuelans and the Chavez, they were the ones that controlled the election. The Chinese and the Venezuelans controlled the election. That's why he has lost. So he's blaming the Cubans and the Venezuelans for his failure in the election. So that's what he's saying. That's what his Rudy Giuliani, his lawyer, chief lawyer, is saying. So this is
fake news,
propaganda. It's blaming other governments for the failure of Trump. But the majority of people in the United States do not want Trump, and especially blacks, Latinos, Asians. They see Trump as an enemy, which he is to their lives. And the majority of people, 80 million people voted for him against Trump.
Yes, I know, but there was a strange situation that some of Latino in Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas voted Trump because he kept saying, "Oh, Biden is socialist. You don't want socialism. You don't want to go back to Cuba."
Well,
that's why.
Look, Trump and the right wing called Obama a communist. See, the right wing in the United States, anybody who is for national health care is a communist. They called Obama a communist and a Muslim at the same time. So the right wing is basically saying anyone who is in favor of policies that benefit the working class is a communist. They probably believe Social Security is communist. Social Security is a benefit for seniors when they retire. So the propaganda. Now, the Democratic Party is not a communist party. It's not a socialist party. It's a capitalist party that and is actually controlled by the same capitalists that control the Republican Party. And Obama's money has come from the banks, has come from big tech, has come from Uber, Lyft, and big companies. That's where Obama's money has come from. So
defense industries as well. Yeah,
defense industry, the military-industrial complex. So the idea that this is a socialist party or a communist party is propaganda. These economic interests control both the Democrats and Republicans, but they've tried to use a communist tag as a vehicle to say you shouldn't vote for them. In Florida, there are immigrants, refugees from Cuba and Venezuela and other countries who want to go back to those countries and take over. Now, Cuba used to be an island controlled by the United States, Batista. It was a colony controlled by the United States. Venezuela is a colony controlled by the United States. And the people that were forced out, many of the people, not all, but many of the people who were forced out of Cuba and Venezuela own the wealth of those countries. That's why they're angry. But the United States, what is happening in the United States is more and more people feel disenfranchised and see that they have no future in this system. And teachers are getting COVID. And the capitalists here, the Trump government has said that COVID was a hoax. And they support herd immunity, which everybody should get COVID and then it'll be okay. They say to people, don't wear masks. People are now dying from COVID and they don't believe that they have COVID because they've been told and believe.
They were fake.
They believe
Right.
it's fake. How could I be
Yeah.
dying of COVID? And they're dying of COVID. So there's a cult behind Trump.
Mhm.
There's a cult of people who believe everything he says is true, and that they believe him, and they're forced to face reality now because the pandemic is running wild in Iowa, North Dakota, all over the country, and the health system is overburdened and may collapse in these rural states like Iowa and North Dakota, South Dakota. These rural states, they don't have enough hospitals. They don't have enough medical personnel. So you're going to have not only hundreds of thousands, possible millions of people could die because you have a breakdown of the whole healthcare system. The same in Japan. If there's a major epidemic, your hospital system would flood over and people would die. They die in the streets. And but the capitalists in Japan and the United States are not worried about that. I mean, they're spending money on the Olympics when they have a pandemic in Japan. How do you figure that? They're spending money in Japan for the Olympics, and people are threatened with a collapse of the healthcare system in Japan. But
A few
that's capitalist
oh,
madness. That's
I saw
madness of capitalism.
yes, at the news from Germany. I was watching the morning show, and there was a commentator in Germany, in German. He said, "Oh, how can we believe it? It's far from the reality." Japan had Bach, the chairman of IOC, and invited him, and they still saying that we're hoping to have the Olympic game at the national stadium with audience. It's impossible. It's unrealistic. So unrealistic. He said so. So that Japan is still dreaming and hoping, and you know that's far from the
Well,
reality.
that's the state of capitalism today. The capitalists are becoming insane. They're untied to reality. You know, so the reality is crushing down on people, and they're pretending everything is okay. Fukushima, Prime Minister Abe, former Prime Minister Abe, said that they cleaned it up and they'd overcome the nuclear disasters, but the melted rods are still in the reactors. There's still over 1 million tons of water, radioactive water, in tanks around Fukushima. That has
They're
not
full
been
of
overcome.
yes.
So they lied to people. They lied to the people in the United States. Trump has lied to the people that this is a hoax and that you shouldn't wear a mask. And the result of that is the United States is entering the worst health crisis in the history of the United States. Worst health crisis in the history of the United States. And even Trump is worried about staying in office so he doesn't go to jail. That's what his concern is. He's afraid that he'll go to jail, and
most
that's
would have.
he may go to jail because there's a fight between the capitalist class. They're fighting each other, and they are desperate. They're desperate. Now, in the face of that, working people are unorganized in the United States. They have unions, but only 12% of workers are in unions. And the unions, as I said before, do not want to fight the government. They don't want to mobilize against the government. They want to make deals. They're brokers between themselves and the capitalists. They make deals. But it's becoming harder and harder to make deals. And the unions are going to be forced to fight more and more to defend themselves. And in the case, for example, of Amazon, Amazon is wiping out not only small shopkeepers, little people who order, when people order online, small shopkeepers lose that business. So Amazon has grown massively, but also Amazon is non-union, and the workers don't have the same benefits that workers at UPS and other unionized companies have. So it threatens the viability of the unionized workforce in the United States.
The same situation that happened between Uber and Uber labor workers. The judge delivered the recent verdict saying the workers on bicycle doesn't need to be protected.
Well, that's right. They spent over $205 million to put a ballot initiative that prevented the workers of Uber and Lyft and these app companies from getting Social Security, disability, unemployment, and other benefits. So what that means is if they get injured on the job and they don't have any money, they go to a hospital, a public hospital, so the public pays for it. It's cost shifting by these companies. And unfortunately, the unions did not organize a strong campaign against Prop 22, because there are many workers who've been injured as a result of Lyft and Uber, and they didn't have them out front to expose to people and educate people about the ripoff. Also, under AB 5, which was the bill that protected these workers, it required the owners to pay workers' compensation. And if you don't pay it, it's illegal. It's a crime. The district attorney of San Francisco, the attorney general of California, did not prosecute the owners of these companies for refusing to pay workers' compensation. So they left them off the hook. They should have arrested them for violating the law. They wouldn't arrest them. So, and also the governor of California, who's a Democrat, Gavin Newsom, refused to endorse. He was neutral on this Prop 22, even though the union supported him. So these Democrats who the unions support, after they get the support of the unions, then they say, we're not gonna really back you up. We take money from billionaires. And that's what's happening with the Democrats and the unions. The unions support the Democrats, and then the Democrats kick them in the face.
Oh, too bad. And it will happen again and again and again. Even by administration.
Again and again. Yeah, that's what happened.
Obama administration, it did happen.
Same thing. Obama promised the unions he would pass labor legislation to allow workers to organize easier, and he did not do that. He did not fight for that. So instead, the Democrats, like the Republicans, are blaming other countries. Blame the Chinese. I mean, Biden is a militarist. He's a war criminal. Biden supported the war in Iraq. Biden supported the bombing of Libya, illegal bombing of Libya. These people have blood on their hands. They're war criminals, and they should be prosecuted. And for what they did.
Yeah, and you know, maybe you have well aware of Bernie Sanders. The most amount of the donator of his campaign were the military industrial complex had donated millions of money to supported him. So that's the reality of the United States. By his policy, by money.
Yes, well, I mean, Bernie Sanders was supported by a large number of people with many small donations, but Bernie Sanders is a social democrat, and he believes in supporting the Democrats and reforming the Democratic Party. So he misled people.
Right.
You know, Bernie Sanders said that the Democratic Party would change things. The Democratic Party is not changing things. In fact, Biden now is putting oil company executives, is putting tech company executives, he's putting these military industrial complex executives in his administration. So you're having the same old business under Biden that Bernie Sanders was supporting. And many workers, many people are angry at Biden because he's going, he wants to invite the Republicans into his cabinet. And he said that. He believes in working with the Republicans. So he's actually going to carry out the policies of capitalism. So there's no fundamental difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. And this is creating a great anger in the United States, but there's a political vacuum in the United States. And that is one of the problems. So
there will be no politicians to support laborers, even though the new administration. Then how could we act? How can you and I and the labor unions and each laborers can act from now on to protect ourselves, our health, our money, and future? How can you say?
Well, we have to have solidarity. We have to have information, build solidarity with workers in Japan and workers in the United States. We have to build an international information channel with news and information, so workers are linked up in the United States with workers in Japan and South Africa, Korea, Latin America. We're facing the same issues all over the world. It's a one world situation. We face the same issues in Brazil, all over the world. And we need unity of workers worldwide, as the international capitalists have. The big capitalists have unity around the world, and they work together against workers. And we need the same kind of international solidarity of workers around the world.
But we don't have money. The capitalists have corporate lawyers. They have tons of money to hire the big shots lawyers, and they're always protected legally. But how can each poor labor like me can hire good lawyers? No, I can't hire lawyers. That's why we all always lost legally. I can't protect myself.
Yeah, well, that is a problem. The courts are controlled by the companies.
Right, and bribes.
By the courts are corrupt. I mean, and the judges are corrupt.
Right.
And the legal system was set up to represent them. It's a capitalist legal system that a capitalist can steal from millions of people, and he gets a slap in the hand. If a worker steals a loaf of bread in a store, he goes to jail. He or she goes to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So the shoplifters is an example of that. The poor people in Japan who are suffering, who can't survive, are punished. And then the billionaires, the people who are ripping people off, who Abe and Suga support, they get away with crimes and corruption. In fact, the Olympics is a complete corrupt operation. They bribe people, which is illegal. Abe should be prosecuted for the corruption in the Olympics. But of course, they don't do that, and no other party, I mean, no party in Japan is calling for the prosecution of corruption by Abe. Yet he and his wife were illegally transferring land, privatizing land to schools, private right-wing schools. Was he ever prosecuted? They covered it up. So we have corrupt capitalist governments, both in the United States and in Japan. So that's our situation. So we have to build an independent movement among working people, among unions and others, to defend ourselves and educate. And working people, if they unite, have power.
You're right. And then the last question is, but yet there have been a big difference between United States democracy and we Japanese national character. Okay? Many people don't raise their voices. Little people don't have voices. They become more protective themselves, because this regime and administration in the past 8-10 years become police state. Now Japan is owned by secret police, so they shut their mouth, even media. And Martin Fackler, he was a former branch manager of New York Times, and he lives in Japan and speaks fluent Japanese. He published a new book saying, "Dog not barking to the highest." Then the dogs not barking. He criticized Japanese media. Do not raise their voice. Do not write little people's life. They know a common people's problem. So they don't know. They're not aware. They don't care about the little people anymore, and they don't demonstrate as much as the United States. No demonstration. How can we motivate those very protective people? They keep silence. Not like the United States. We admire you. People raise voice and fighting. And, they don't shut down. They don't shut their mouth, but we have. That's our problem. Any advice?
Well, you have to get the truth out about what's happening. And you have to, one of the problems that people have is they think that somebody else is going to take care of things for them. Somebody else will solve their problems. And if change only happens when people themselves take responsibility for making change. So we have to educate people. We have to educate people. It's going to get much worse than it is now. And the only way you're going to protect yourself is to organize and speak out and get organized. And I think there are people in Japan that want to change and don't like what's going on.
Most of us are very conservative. Even middle class, low class, labor class, they consider themselves as a conservative. All nation has become conservative. And not like the United States. How can we model, what can we learn from the movement of the United States?
Well, I mean, the people, well, the one thing you can learn is that people in the United States are opposing American capitalism. They are opposing this system. And they are calling for unity with workers around the world. There's growing solidarity with workers around the world in the United States. The United States is an international country. They're working people from all over the world, from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia. So we
immigrants.
And immigrants, and the Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans. I mean, they're people that have been here from all over the world for since the United States became a country. And then, of course, you have the indigenous people in the United States who are under attack. So the American people are speaking out, and that frightens the right wing. The Black Lives Movement is a very good example of mass movement for human rights and dignity. So we have to support those movements, and we have to say the same movement is needed in every country. We need people to speak out in every country, Japan, China. I mean, all people have to defend themselves and speak out. So wherever you are. And I think that the developments in the United States have encouraged people around the world that American people will speak out. But one thing that has not happened is there hasn't been a mass working class movement in the United States. In the 1930s and the 40s, there were general strikes in the United States. There were worker occupations that led to the organization of unions. And that has to happen today in the United States. We have to need a mass working class movement. We need to push Trump out with a general strike. We need to shut down the United States and say, go. And that action would electrify the world.
Good idea.
Would electrify the world, because people would say, finally, the American people are waking up. Enough is enough. And this is coming in the United States because people are beginning to see they have to act collectively as a united workforce against these attacks and united people. Otherwise, it's going to get much worse.
So then how would it happen? What if Trump keep rising those people and give them influence from now on?
Well, that's why we need a labor party. We need a workers' party that has a program to deal with their economic crisis. They're in denial. They believe that they've been told that it's the communists' fault. It's somebody else's fault. Now they're saying it's the Venezuelans. It's other people outside. No, in the United States, we have to solve our problems here. We have to solve our problems here, not over there, here. And when you have 800 bases all over the world, bombing people and destroying people all over the world, you're not helping the people here. And, so we have to focus on working people taking control of the country from both the Democrats and Republicans, and having a program for working people with health care for all, with housing for all, with free public education for all, with workers having the right to organize and unionize for all workers in this country. And that can happen. In the United States, actually, we're closer to that happening. We're much closer. And that's why the capitalists are very worried about the working class. In fact, the Democrats are afraid, as well as the Republicans, of a mass movement of the working class. They're afraid of that.
Then any suppression, any possibility of suppression by new administration to those labor citizen movement?
There is possible they'll try to repress strikes. Yeah, I mean the military apparatus, the police apparatus in the United States is used by both the Democrats and Republicans. The militarization of the police took place under Obama. Obama allowed the militarization of police. Obama was jailing immigrants in the United States. It's not just Trump. It was done by Obama. So that has been happening under both the Democrats and Republicans. That's why we need a political alternative to both of those parties.
Then lastly, how these extreme right wing, as so-called the QAnon, Proud Boys, KKK, those people is considered as forgotten. Now they will be a forgotten class after Trump left.
Well, they're not forgotten. There's always been right-wing racists. What Trump has done, though, is said it's okay to do that. It's okay to be an open racist.
Oh,
It's okay to attack people because of their color or because of their nationality. He's encouraged that. He's incited people with racist xenophobia and anti-Semitic behavior. So he's encouraged that. But that people have to organize to defend themselves. People have to say we're not going to accept that, and we're going to fight back against that, and we're going to defend ourselves against these racist attacks.
And they bought guns and rifles. And so
well, the United States has a history of guns and people dealing with political differences by killing each other. I mean, the assassination of people is a long history in the United States. So it's a violent country. But what has the United States done around the world? We've killed millions of people. In Vietnam, the United States killed 3 million people. Killed people in Korea. We killed people in Libya. We killed people in Iraq. We've been bombing and killing people all over the world. So now it's coming home to the United States.
That's right. Backfired.
Well, that's what happens. If you're killing people all over the world and bombing people all over the world, pretty soon it happens here in the United States. It's not something over there. It's right here. That's why people have to demand the removal of all U.S. military out of Japan, out of Okinawa and out of Japan. The United States has no business occupying Japan. The Japanese don't even control their own airspace in Tokyo. How could that be? Over 70 years after the war, and the United States still controls the airspace in Tokyo? So,
and also so far protect the military presence and even the air rights. We don't have air rights.
And the United States is pushing for more nuclear power plants. The United States lied to the Japanese people about the danger of nuclear weapon. They said atoms for peace. They supported war criminals in Japan. They gave them newspapers. They gave them TV stations to propagate war propaganda, to propagate nuclear power in Japan. And Japan has suffered, 2 bombs by the United States, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These were done by American military. And now they have Fukushima, that disaster, that catastrophe. How much do the Japanese people have to go through? And of course, large numbers of Japanese protested many, many months and years against Fukushima. And the government ignored it. But, politically, the people of Japan have to break from the liberal Democrats, the Democratic Party, these parties. These parties are corrupt, these political parties in Japan, like the American political parties are corrupt.
Yeah, because LDP was originally founded by CIA back in the...
Yeah, the United States actually founded the LDP. So, the United States has been putting in right-wing corporate parties all over the world. And they still control them. The LDP kowtows to the United States. And one thing about Japan now, Japan needs, as do other countries in Asia, to look to China. China is the largest, is growing in the most important economy for Japan and Korea. Why would Japan want to go to war with China? That's insanity. That's destruction of the world. Well, but that's what the United States is pushing. The United States is pushing, as Nakasone said, for Japan to be an aircraft carrier for the United States. Well, what does that mean for the Japanese? What does that mean for the Japanese people? It means a disaster. It means a war and the destruction of Japan. How many wars does Japan have to go through to be an aircraft carrier for the United States? And then when the Japanese capitalist politicians say this, we're an aircraft carrier for the United States, the Japanese people have to reject that.
Right.
But we have to reject that. Well, they have to reject that, because tying their hands to the militarists and the corporatists of the United States is going to mean the destruction of Japan. Japan will be destroyed if it follows the United States. The United States believes that the only way it can solve its crisis is to attack China, surround China, and attack China. That means world war. That's a danger to the entire world. That's why we have to stop these war criminals and these people who are running the government, because they're out of control. They're going to lead us to a world war for profit. And they make profit from it, like from the nuclear industry. They make profit from it. That's all they're concerned about. The profiteers want to make profit off the Olympics, even though people do not have enough health care in Japan and are facing a pandemic. I mean, think about the insanity of Bach and the Japanese government saying they're going to go ahead with the Olympics in a worldwide pandemic. They need to be put in jail. They need to be put in prison for that. They're threatening the lives of people in Japan and around the world. what people want to go to Japan in the middle of a world pandemic and get contaminated? Are you insane? Are these people insane? I think they're criminally insane that they would say we should have an Olympics in the middle of a world pandemic, in the middle of a situation in which they haven't resolved the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. And he lied. Abe lied to people, said they've overcome it.
He said he had said
decontaminated. They've decontaminated Fukushima. That's a lie.
Right, right. He kept saying completely under control. Don't worry. He promised, and he left.
Well, he's like Trump. He's like Trump. Trump said, "Don't worry about the virus. It's okay. I can get over it."
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. Identical.
Identical.
Good friend. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you covered everything I have asked. 7 questions. It was more over than I expected. Thank you so much for your
thank you, Sarah.
time, passion, and intelligence. And if you would say something, the last words to my readers, to my audience, what would you say lastly
I
today?
would say we have to have more communication, direct communication between the people of the United States and people of Japan. We need solidarity, and the way we get solidarity between the people of the United States and the people of Japan is to have more communication, more education. So for the struggles and issues of Japan, we have to learn about them in the United States, and you have to see what is going on in the United States, our struggles, because they're the same struggles for people in both countries.